Have you ever come across a recipe that you're just like, this is a recipe for me? Like, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I'm gonna think this tastes amazing. I think today's video is going to be like that, or today's recipe. So I'm still at home with my family and I'm going to be making, it's called a chopped cheese sandwich. I never heard of it, never saw it. I was watching the dessert lady and she made this and it is like my ideal food, I think. It is a sub roll where you make like a smashed cheeseburger, Philly cheesesteak looking kind of thing. Literally, you just chop up hamburger meat with cheese and you put it on a hoagie roll. Like, so good. Before we start on all of that for dinner tonight, I do have to get the hoagie rolls started. Now, she did one where you had to like put it in the fridge. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna do it in the zojirushi bread machine, and I have yet to have them turn out poorly. Watch tonight's be horrible, and then we have to go to the store and buy them. But guess what? That's all you do. You just go to the store if it doesn't turn out. So I'm gonna get these in. I'm using from Dig In. It's just one I found online because I don't have my recipe book with me. So I'm gonna try these and see how they turn out. But I am really excited about this dinner tonight. Okay, so I think I'm going to try to do half of the flour freshly milled. This is in grams, which I absolutely love. I love a recipe in grams. It just makes things so much easier. But I do think I'm going to do about half freshly milled flour, and I am going to use a hard white wheat. I just have found that when especially like a new recipe like this, if I do half and half, it just seems to turn out better. And I just kind of like the taste of it a little bit better. Like, you get the softness, but you get a little bit of the whole wheat. I've tried like completely freshly milled flour. I like that, but my family, they're not the biggest fan of the whole wheat. So I do tend to use a little bit more, regular flour, and I'll be using bread flour for that. So, going to get my scale out, and so we can start getting this stuff into the bread machine. Okay, so this recipe calls for 308 to 355 grams of warmed water. I don't have to warm it since I'm using the zojirushi. It will preheat on its own. And you might see a little bit of flour. I actually made something in here earlier, just a dough. So I'm actually gonna do the 355 since I'm using some freshly milled flour. Whoops, went a little over. Of course I did. 2 tablespoons of sugar, 6 grams of salt. And sometimes I put my salt with the fluids and sometimes I put it around the side. Honestly, it's just if I remember to put it in the fluids. But I honestly haven't noticed a difference in how the bread turns out, whether I put it on the edge or put it in the liquid. All right, so it calls for 56 grams of butter. And I did just realize that this, ooh, what is that? Oh, it's butter. Okay, never mind. I did just realize that this is not technically a bread machine recipe, which is fine. If you put it in the order, usually it's fine. I'll just check it, as it's mixing to make sure that it doesn't need more liquid or more flour. Just, might be a little bit different. Okay, 56, and I'm going to melt this. Now, by adding the butter, I'm just adding fat, so I'm just going to enrich the dough. Okay, so now the recipe calls for 448 to 512 grams of bread flour. I'm going to stick to like 450. And like I said, I'll probably do 225 of hard white wheat, freshly milled, and 225 of bread flour. And that's just because I can always add more flour. I'm trying to keep it, with freshly milled flour, you do tend to have to add a little bit more liquid. So I'm just going to try to play with it and watch my dough. If it looks like it's too sticky, I'll add a little bit more flour, and I find that a little bit easier than adding additional liquid. So we're gonna start with 450 grams, 225 hard wheat, 225 bread flour. Now, I do have a lot of people ask about these canisters. My mom is the one that found these at Walmart. They are plastic, but they're the BPA free and all of that. And we keep our bulk flour and I keep my grains in a jar, but these things are just great. I mean, they really are wonderful. They stack on top of each other. I'll try to show what hers looks like. It's a great way to store like sugar and flour and beans and or dry beans and things like that. Okay. That's gonna take a little while. We'll just pour it. Looking for 225. Oh, went over a little bit. It's okay. Perfect. Okay, this is how she stores hers. She has such a great, nice little pantry. But they just stack on top of each other and you can just pull out what you need and it's great. We have our freshly milled flour, and I do like to put this in first so that it's directly on the water. So while it's preheating or just sitting there, that it's actually soaking up some of that water a little bit more. With freshly milled flour, it does take a little bit longer as well. And that's why there's a difference in the whole wheat function and versus the regular flour function. So I like to put this in first. That way it's already kind of absorbing some of that liquid. I guess I don't have to be quite as ginger about it. 226 actually, but that's okay. Now I'm just going to do 225 of the bread flour. There we go, 450. And now I need 7 grams of yeast. Make a little spot in the middle. There we go. I am just going to push this in the zojirushi. Make sure you do 2. You have the 2 snaps. Plug it up and turn it on. And then for this, you'll see once it's turned on, you'll see that you can kind of pick between the different cycles you want to do. For this one, I actually do want the first ferment, so I'm going to do a basic dough. That will preheat. I go ahead and start it. That will preheat it, it's going to mix it and let it rise, and it does like a much longer cycle than if I did a quick dough like I did for my pizza video. So I'm gonna let this go and I'll check this once it starts mixing to make sure that, you know, everything is on the sides and it is looking the way it's supposed to look, and I don't need to add any flour. I'm gonna take a look. Yeah, we definitely are going to need to brush down the sides. And I'm gonna give it just a minute, but I think I'm gonna have to add some more flour. I'm just going to add 2 tablespoons of flour and see. I think that's all it's going to need. Not even do the rest of that. I think I'm gonna stop there and just let it. That looks like it's going to do really, really well. So once your dough cycle is finished, then you're going to want to flour your surface because most likely the dough is going to be a little bit stickier. And as you'll see later, I actually had to add even more flour because my dough was just too sticky. Now, how I decide if my bread is too sticky, I feel like it's just a feeling. You don't want it to be so sticky that you can't touch the bread. To me, it feels a little bit like a very, very soft Play-Doh. Like you want it ever so slightly firm, but kind of just on that edge. I feel like it just takes time and practice, and I'm still working on that myself. But once you get the feel for it, then you'll just know if it's close or exactly how you want it. Now for these hoagies, I did want to make sure that they were basically the same size. So I did weigh the entire dough and divide that into 6 pieces. As you will see, this is when I could really tell that my dough was just stickier than I wanted it to be. I did try to form a couple of them without adding more flour, but eventually I did go ahead, add more flour to each one of the pieces, just a little bit. And then when I felt like it was at the consistency I wanted, I rolled each one of them individually and shaped them into little balls. I like to just cup my hands under the dough ball and then just twist. I think that gives it a really tight top, and it just makes a really perfect dough ball in my opinion. And if you like making fresh bread items and really enjoy the process of making dough, whether it's in the bread machine or by hand, please consider subscribing to the channel. Making different breads is one of my favorite things to do. I try to live a pretty helpful lifestyle, but still keeping it fun and balanced in the kitchen. So if you're into that, then I think you'll enjoy the channel. Back to the hoagies. Then I covered it with saran wrap and put a kitchen towel over it just so it could proof for about an hour. And once they had basically doubled in size, then it was time to actually shape the hoagies. And so I saw with the dessert person, she was folding the hoagies by folding it on one side, then folding the other side in, and then you actually pull it up and pinch it on the top, and then you roll it into a log. I thought that this was a great technique for shaping hoagies. It just worked really, really well. So it was the first time I had tried that method, and like I said, I thought it turned out really good. So you're just going to fold in the bottom half, or once you flatten it out, you're going to fold in the bottom half, fold over the top half, and then pull the sides together and pinch it on the top. Roll it into the hoagie shape, and then you are going to put those onto a sheet pan, cover with the saran wrap and the kitchen towel, and then you are going to let that proof for basically another hour. And while your oven preheats to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, this took about an hour for the hoagies to double in size. Also, per usual, the recipe that I used, it will be linked below, and anything that I did differently, I will make sure to note. But once your hoagies had doubled in size, you need to score the top, and all I had was a knife that was not the sharpest, as you'll see. And I still think I could have added a little bit more flour. These were really, really light. The bread turned out fine, but I think I could have added a little bit more flour. Okay, they look good. I think they were still a little too soft. Like there should have been a little bit more flour because it was hard to cut, score it. Also, all I had was a knife and it was quite dull, so maybe that's why. But they have reached 200 degrees, and I'm gonna brush a little bit of butter on top because I did not do an egg wash. I just thought they were a little too weak to do that, so I just decided I would do a little butter on top. And honestly, I'm a butter on bread kind of gal, so I'm just going to do the rest of these, and then these will be ready for when we do our chopped cheese. Okay, toppings complete. We have traditional ketchup and mayonnaise. Chopped up some tomatoes. Those are just the tomatoes that we had, and we needed to use them. Shredded lettuce, and then we are going to do onion jam for those that want to try it and go rogue and veer off from traditional. These are our toppings for tonight. Okay, Blackstone is oiled and smoking hot. He's actually going to put a little bit more oil on it. You could do this inside, but we decided to do it out here on the griddle because ease. All right, so we're taking 9-ounce beef patties.
I done them all at one time.
I don't see why you can't.
Get my hand contaminated.
So for those of you who don't know, this is my dad, and he just proceeded to smash down the meat on the Blackstone. All right, he just salt and peppered this, and now he's about to start chopping it up. He's just trying to get like a good crust on it. Looks good. I'm so excited. Apparently this is very popular in New York. Hibachi style. So for a chopped cheese, the biggest part is chopping up the meat on a hot surface. And I know I've said crust already like 2 or 3 times, but that's the whole point. You want to have it like a smash burger, you know, the crispy edges of the meat. That's basically what the entire thing is supposed to be. It's just the crispy edge of a hamburger meat. All right, just sectioning them off into 5 little patties. Cheese. Just gonna let that get good and melty. What kind of cheese is that?
Sharp cheddar.
Sharp cheddar. I think it's traditionally made with like American cheese, but we use what we have. Cheese is having a hard time melting because it's so cold out here. What is the temperature tonight? I know last night was 25 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, I'm gonna get these ready. I think most everyone wants a little bit of the onion jam. I know that's not traditional, but that's something my mom canned, and so that's what we are going to try. Also, my dad has opted for some mustard, so that's what we're gonna do as well. So for everything that I saw, chopped cheese has a very traditional set of toppings. However, I feel like it's kind of like a hamburger. You can kind of do whatever you want on these. Like whatever you enjoy eating on a burger, use that as the topping on your chopped cheese. And when you cut your bread, you don't want to cut all the way through. Ooh, that was loud. You want to leave the connection in the bread. So once you've decided on the toppings, you're just going to get the bread ready because you really want to pull off the meat from the griddle and put it into the bread as quickly as you can. Yeah. All right, here's mine. Ketchup only.
Which one do you want?
Doesn't matter. You might need to hold it. Like it might be a one-man job for this. Yum. Okay. Let's do Kurt's next, because Kurt's is just the onion jam. People make it look so easy. So this meal actually surpassed my expectations. It was even better than I thought it was going to be. I love the crispiness that you get from meat when you grill it on a griddle and smash it like that. And of course, the bread was delicious. There's nothing better than homemade bread, in my opinion. So I highly suggest trying a chopped cheese because it's an A++. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.